kids, today we are talking about adaptation. So what we're going to do is hopefully you've already opened up the attachment and we're going to go ahead and read together. I'm going to pause and we're going to go through some notes, so make sure that you've got your science notebook to jot those down. I will also post it so you can just jot them down afterwards if you don't want to have to pause the video. Okay? So today we are talking about adaptations. So make sure to title your notebook page adaptations. An adaptation is a change that helps an organism to survive in its environment. So it is a change. We've got our first note here. An adaptation is a change, okay? Adaptations occur over many generations. So this isn't just going to be something that I choose to change with myself and then I can pass it on to everybody that comes after me. And this isn't something that I can just pass on to Brantley, right? This is something that over a long, long, long time has to happen, okay? And there's different types of these. So it says organisms that are adapted to their environment are better able to survive and reproduce. So that's the whole reason we want to adapt, so that we can survive. So that then means that organisms that are not adapted to their environment are less likely to survive and reproduce. Some plant and animal adaptations are behavioral and others are physical. So there are two types, the way you behave or the way that you look. Most behavioral and physical adaptations are passed down from the parent to the offspring. This means that they are inherited. Now, the way that I remember inherited is the word in. So, it is already in me. It's already something that I know how to do. So some things that you might already know how to do that nobody had to teach you is maybe breathing. Nobody had to teach you how to breathe. You were born and it's just something that happened, right? Opposed to tying your shoes. Somebody had to teach you how to do that. You didn't just know how, okay? So it says some characteristics and behaviors are learned. So tying your shoes, this is learned by interacting with the environment. Did you inherit the ability to ride a bike? So is that something that you had in you already? Or is that something that you had to learn? Well, that's definitely something that you had to learn. So again, there are two types of adaptations. The first one is something that's already in you, something that you already know how to do, something nobody had to teach you. And then the other one is learned, something you had to learn how to do. So those are pretty easy. Those scientists who came up with these words, they're not trying to make it too hard on us, okay? All right, we are going to go ahead and read strictly about plants today because we want to jump back into our bean investigation. So you guys can go ahead after this. We're going to tune into our bean investigation and you'll continue copying your notes, okay? So today we're talking about plant adaptations. Did you know that plants can also respond to their environments? Like animals, plants also develop many adaptations. Some of these adaptations are different sizes and shapes of plant parts, such as leaves, stems, roots, and flowers. So I like to think about this, some flowers have like really, really smelly smells, right? Some can be super beautiful smelling, and that's because they want to attract insects so that they can continue to pollinate and make more of those flowers. Some are really brightly colored, and again, they're trying to attract insects to them so those insects get pollen on them and go make more of those flowers. We're going to read a little bit more about other types of plants in just a second. All right, so we're going to continue on with our behavioral and our characteristic notes, which we just talked about. And then we're going to start adding on to our plant adaptation notes. So they have different sizes and shapes with leaves, stems, roots, flowers, and then eventually we're going to talk here about thorns and some other interesting things, especially like sunflowers. The leaves, oh wait, sorry, that's not where we were. If a lot of water is available, plants grow very tall, right? So they've adapted to grow very tall. And then if there's not a lot of water, plants do not grow tall. Some plants have large leaves to take in the maximum amount of sunlight. So we said that some have different shaped leaves, and that's why. Other plants have leaves that allow water to drain down toward their roots. In winter, some plants shed their leaves so the plant will not lose water while the ground is frozen. Plants native to Florida do not have to do this, since the ground does not freeze. have up north, our trees won't do that because they don't need to. So these Florida trees, they've also adapted to not have to shed leaves, okay? The leaves of a prickly pear cactus plant are called spines, which help reduce water evaporation. Why is this important? Cactus plants grow in environments that do not receive much rainfall, so they need to protect and store as much water as possible. The spines also create a sharp barrier that prevents animals from eating the plant to get the sugar and water stored inside. So this brings me back to the flower at the beginning of this page that I was talking about. Brantley and I go for walks every day, and we have this rose bush that we pass every day. And we check in on it because this time of year, roses are blooming. So one day we walked by and there was a rosebud, and we talked about the rosebud and how in a couple days it'll open up. And he wanted to smell it. I told him that roses smell beautiful, but there's a ton of thorns. So just like the spines on this cactus, those thorns are trying to protect that flower, right? If an animal comes and eats or stomps on that rose, then the rose will die and insects can't put pollen to go spread more and grow more roses, okay? So that's why they might have thorns. A pine tree develops cones instead of fruit to protect its seeds. A pine tree's leaves are called needles. The small shape of the needles helps prevent water loss in dry conditions, much like a cactus's spines. Many pine trees live in cold climates, but we have pine trees in Florida too. To the right is an image of the Florida slash pine with a close-up of the needles and cone. Most plants and trees grow toward the light. So I usually play a really cool sunflower video. We're going to talk here about sunflowers in just a second. But what sunflowers do is they follow the sun. So there's a time-lapse video, and in the morning, the sunflowers are like this. And then as the sun rises, they follow their petals. Everything about the sunflower follows it. And then the sun sets, and they droop back down. And then the sun rises again, and then they follow it. Because they need to soak up as much sun as they possibly can. Sun helps these flowers grow, right? So it's very, very interesting that they've adapted to move with the sun to capture as much sunlight as they can. Some plants and vines even have structures that reach out and wrap tightly around a support. Other plants have thorns to help protect them from being eaten. Some plants can even trap and digest insects. Some plants, like sunflowers, have flowers that turn to follow the sun. Other kinds of flowers, like the ones on cactus plants, open during the day and close at night. All right, keep working, guys. You guys are doing great.